Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 9. This week we're going to talk about persuasion versus argumentation, and then you're going to write an opposing and a refuting paragraph. So it's not a lot of work, but it's something you really need to continue with the rest of the semester because everything we write from now on is going to be argumentation. And I like to concentrate half of this semester on argumentation because English 201, if you were to take that, is all argumentation. So, and I can tell you, and this isn't an ego thing, that students who take English 201, which is the argumentation class, who have taken me for 110, do really well. So, overview and the objectives, you can look here. My plan of attack, that's what I'm going over now. How would I go about this week's work, completing this week's work? First is the Townsend Press lab component. Chapter 10 is argumentation. There's a video here. Watch that and then complete the mastery test and the exercises. I'm adding the exercises as a grade because you can redo the exercises until you get 100. So those hundreds along with the mastery test scores should help you do better. Plus, remember when you're going through these, if you get the after each problem, you should get an answer or an explanation to why your answer was correct or wrong. So go ahead and do those. And then here's a quiz on persuasion and argumentation, and here's some argumentation essay models and phrases. You're going to do these before you attempt the opposing and the refuting, which is the discussion board prompt for this week. So let me take you here first. So the big difference between persuasion and argumentation is everything that we write, we are trying to persuade our readers that our topic sentence or our thesis is actually correct. For instance, when we're writing a compare and contrast, we're trying to persuade the readers that yes, Joyce and Paul have something in common, or they have something that is not in common, or cause and effect, or anything you write, you're trying to persuade. The big difference between persuasion and argumentation is when we're trying to persuade, we give all of our evidence, period. This is our opinion, this is what we think, this is how they compare. Paul and Joyce compare in these 3 ways. That is we're trying to persuade. The difference with argumentation is now we're trying to bring in the opposite, the opposing viewpoints. Meaning we're going to bring evidence to say, you know, there are some people that would not agree with what we think is the comparison or the argument. And then you'll bring in the other side. Now, argumentation, which you'll go over in the other video where you take the first quiz, there's a video on it. Argumentation, it doesn't mean you're screaming and you're shouting and anything like that. It's just you're bringing in the other side politely. This way your reader doesn't think you're trying to hide anything. And if you take a look here, I want to make this bigger. Okay. There are different ways that you can set up an argumentation. But if you notice models A, B, C, and D, they all have counter and argument, counter, argument, and refute, counter, argument, refute, counter, argument, refute. So this means that you're going to bring in the opposing viewpoint, but then you're going to spin it back or refute to why your side is still the best. So your point is the pro, the opposing point, or the people who would disagree with you are the con, the opposing. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to write a counter argument and we're going to refute as well. So how are we going to do that? Let's go into the prompt. Okay, so you've completed these 2. This argumentation you can wait, I think, until after Wednesday, but these 2 quizzes for sure do before you complete the prompt. So let's come here. So we're going to do a counter argument. I give an example here is if we're talking about which cell phone company is better, Verizon or Sprint, you're going to give, if we think that Verizon is a better company than Sprint, Verizon would be our pro. That's who we're going to represent. And then Sprint would be the opposing or the con. So again, if this were just persuasion, we would give all of our reasons that we think Verizon is better, and we would not bring in the opposing, or we would not bring any facts that Sprint may have to make them better. Okay, so here we are. So, however, you will bring in the opposing viewpoint reasons that Sprint may be better. So we're going to oppose. For example, Sprint may be cheaper, and that is why some people prefer it. So again, we are pro Verizon, but look here, we're bringing in Sprint. Oh, you know what? Yes, we still think that Verizon is better, but we're going to bring in Sprint. We're going to bring in the main good points about Sprint. It's kind of like being in a courtroom and you don't want to hide anything, because if you hide anything, you look suspicious. It hurts your ethos, your credibility as a writer. So anyway, so we are the pro for Verizon. The con is Sprint, that is our opposing. We want to make this argumentation, so we're going to bring in their point. For example, Sprint may be cheaper, and that is why some people prefer it. Then we want to refute, or we want to concede first. Yes, Verizon is more expensive, but their cell phone network is bigger and offers better coverage. So yes, Sprint is cheaper, but I said it should be Sprint. Sprint customers get what they pay for, losing connections and dropped calls. So here, again, we are pro Verizon. Con, or the opposing, is Sprint. Yes, Sprint may be cheaper than Verizon, but it doesn't matter, because in the end, Verizon is still better, because even though Sprint is cheaper, Verizon's more expensive. We don't lose as many calls with Verizon. Verizon has more towers for us to use. So again, Verizon is the pro, Sprint is the opposing. All right. So what we're going to do, let's just jump down here. Last week, your discussion board prompt was about pathos, logos, and ethos. And in the paragraph that you wrote for last week's discussion board, you chose one of those. That was your pro. So for me, last week, let's pretend I'm a student, I wrote that I chose pathos as the main rhetorical appeal in the ACLU advertisement. So pathos is what I chose. Pathos is my pro, and my opposing would be either ethos or logos. And I need to choose one of those to oppose, to bring in their side, and I chose logos. So let's go through here, and I'll show you what your paragraph will look like, your opposing paragraph for this week. So here we are, boom. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the information that I wrote last week for my pro for pathos, and now I'm going to oppose that and bring in logos as my opposing view. How am I going to start it? Introduce the opposing paragraph or topic sentence. So I could say opposing views claim that the ACLU advertisement plays more on logos than it does in pathos. So here I'm kind of bringing in the other side. I'm saying, you know what? However, some people may believe that logos plays more than pathos. Then I'm going to give reasons, just like I did for Sprint. Well, here are some reasons that people might say that there's more logos than pathos. So what do they say? They claim, these people, the opposing views, they claim that logos or facts will always be more powerful than pathos. For example, the ad states, even those who support capital punishment, blah, 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 page 551. Then I said, admittedly, this statement is based on facts, on logos that have been proven in the ad, okay? So I'm saying, look, there is logos. They are stating facts, and this is the quote that you're going to use a quote to support yourself, and then you're going to refute it. You're going to spin it back to your side. However, the picture of the man sitting in the electric chair is still both scary and depressing, which is pathos for sure. This is tantamount to trying to not look at an accident on the side of the road. Would readers have stopped to read the article if it had not been for the emotional appeal of this picture? So in my first paragraph, I wrote that pathos was the main appeal. And why? Because that electric chair in the middle of the advertisement, honestly, guys, when I read it and that grabbed me, it made me feel uneasy. So that's why I chose pathos. All right. So now here, I uh, I refuted. I spun it back to my viewpoint. Pathos is actually in the long run stronger than logos. Even though logos does have some good points, I still think that pathos is the main appeal in this advertisement. Then you're going to introduce a conclusion. Ultimately, pathos is stronger than logos in this context because the power of vivid imagery of the man sitting in the electric chair is what attracts the reader to the ad. And then you give your works cited, which is there. So when you're writing your counter paragraph, you're going to introduce the opposing paragraph, the topic sentence. You will do it in bold with the parenthesis. So you're going to include 1, 2, 3, 4 points. Okay? And if you need to look at these points more in depth, I have the document for you to look at. Let's go there. Earlier, I showed you the document that's given to you to take the one quiz, but I've also put it in the prompt. So let's click on it again. Again, here are the different ways to complete an essay, which you will look at later. Okay, so here's how you're going to start the opposition. Introduce the opposing argument. How are you going to do that? This is where you're going to give your topic sentence. Here's how you can start it. All right. And remember, I chose this way, opposing views claim. So if you go back to my paragraph, this is how I started mine. Okay, or you could often say, it is often argued that logos is more of an appeal than pathos. Remember, we're bringing in the opposite. So for me, the opposite was logos. So you can use one of these ways to set up your topic sentence. Then you have to give your evidence. So admittedly or certainly, of course there's logos because in the quote, blah, 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 they mention facts, which is logos. Use one of these ways to set it up. Then you're going to refute. I forgot the E there, guys. Sorry about that. So you're going to give the counter argument, which means you're going to bring in your point and refute it, spin it back to your side. Okay. On the other hand, pathos was more powerful than logos. Look at the picture in the middle of the ad. I'm spinning back to my side. Remember, pathos is my pro, logos is my con. And then you're going to conclude, thus, therefore, ultimately. So ultimately, although logos does have a good point, comma, pathos is still the clear dominant appeal in this ACLU document, period. So use these. And I put my example here. So introduce the paragraph. How are you going to introduce the paragraph and the topic sentence? Use one of these ways to start it. Next, acknowledge the valid parts of the opposition. This is where you're bringing in the facts. So you could put here, admittedly, certainly, of course, any of these. So once we go to their side, we're giving a fact for logos. We want to spin it back to our side, which is pathos, counter argument or refute. Oh, well, how can I start that? Well, nevertheless, however, these are just examples. You can use different ways, but I'm trying to give you guys a good format to follow because some of you may have never written a counter refute paragraph before. Bring in the opposing. And then the last part you have to include is introduce the conclusion. There are different clue words you can use. Ultimately, as a result, therefore, I chose to use ultimately. So again, when you're writing your paragraph, you'll include 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 items, they must be in bold and put them in parentheses before the sentence. Okay, and again, let me come back up here. Right now, what we're doing is the paragraph that you wrote last week, we're just pretending it's one body paragraph of an essay. What we're working on this week is counter and argument. That's it. That's all this paragraph is. Watch the video over again if you need to. Again, you're going to